Welcome to Wean Off the Palate. Today we're discussing Bridgerton, Season 1, Episode 6, Swish. Yep, that's the title of the episode. Yes, it is. I am, of course, your Ween. A warning at the top of the episode. This is the famous episode of Bridgerton where Daphne forces the Duke of Hotness to finish while still penetrating her. It generated a lot of discourse, and so I felt like I should mention it before I talked about it, especially in a quasi-comedic form. But we'll get there when we get there, and we're not there yet, because things are still good where we're at. I mean, like, psychically. Obviously, they're not good in that I don't like the show. But they're good in that the Duke of Hotness and Daphne are arriving at his beautiful estate, and they're in love, and they're happy, and they're in love. Lady Whistledown is giving us narration about the honeymoon, the time for the couple to really be glad forever and love each other and bang it out and whatever, some shit. And so the head of staff there at Duke Hotness's estate is like, oh, great to have you back, so excited to have people in residence again since the Duke of Hotness hasn't been living here for a long time. I can give you a tour. And they're like, no, there's no time for the tour, and you know, and I know what there is time for. It's sexo. It's sexo. It's always sexo. It never isn't sexo. It's Bridgerton. It's a wooden floor. Don't worry about it. This is called art and design. So they skip the tour, Daphne and the Duke of Hotness. When Daphne is like, oh, where are our bedrooms? The Duke of Hotness is like, why would we ever have separate bedrooms? And she's like, hoo, sexo. Back at London, there's a big garden party going on. Eloise is hunting for Lady Whistledown and ignoring her mom, being like, well, now that Daphne is married off, it's your turn as the next oldest daughter, which, of course, as we know, being a hashtag feminist, this is something that Eloise is dreading, and I don't blame her. And then, apropos of nothing, Colin decides to announce his engagement to Marina to everyone at the garden party, so his family can't really back out. His mother and Anthony take this somewhat poorly, as you might expect, and Penelope is quite sad. After the party, Anthony takes Colin aside and is like, WTF, man, why are you marrying this girl? Did you sleep with her? I should have just taken you to get laid at brothels if you were that horny, bro. And he's like, no, I'm in love with Marina, and we're gonna get married. And Anthony's like, I would really prefer you didn't, and I am not blessing this union. Which upsets Colin, but like, what did he think was going to happen? Let's be real here. Back in the house of Daphne and the Duke of Hotness, they're engaging in sexo. They're doing sexo. But Daphne does want to also see the house, and she feels like she needs to take the housekeeper's tour so that, she doesn't seem like a thoughtless mistress. And I thought that was all very reasonable. The Duke of Hotness's main footman comes in and is like, oh, Duke of Hotness, I don't want to disturb you because your most important task is obviously sexo, but the estate is kind of in disarray. So, like, we need you as the Duke of Hotness to, like, fix it. And the Duke of Hotness reluctantly agrees to fix it. The housekeeper is giving Daphne the tour. Daphne wants to give the servants some time off to attend the fair in town, and the housekeeper is a little scandalized. But, that's Daphne. a great friend of the working class. And as they're going on the tour, I guess the shape of most of these characters' legs doesn't really matter anyway, because they're going to be wearing dumbass Empire waist sheath dresses. But whatever, I'm drawing them anyway. I'm not reining it in. While looking at the portrait of the Duke of Hotness's mom, the housekeeper has a whole rapturous discourse about how she so loved Duke of Hotness's mother and how she was a perfect duchess, and Daphne feels a little intimidated and whatever. And then it's dinner time, just 'cause, and the Duke of Hotness shows up late because he's so busy. And the dinner is way too formal. He and Daphne have to sit on distant opposite ends of the table. And they feel lonely, and also they want to have sexo. And then they don't even really get very far into dinner before they're like, it's more important we have sexo. And so they rush out into the lawn and they do sexo in a nasty, like, outbuilding, which I didn't think seemed like fun, but okay. We've all had sexo in weird places. Anybody who's done sexo has made some bad choices about where they did it, so okay, whatever. The Duke of Hotness is polite about asking Daphne, what does she prefer? Does she enjoy this position and that? And then when he is going to complete his process, sexo-wise, he removes himself, as he has the habit of doing, because he doesn't want to have children, because as we know, his backstory and his bad dad, and he doesn't want to have children because he wants to, like, ruin his father's legacy, even though he's now going to save his father's estate, so whatever. Oh, she has an enormous foot. Not in the show, but she has an enormous foot now in this picture. I hope she uses it to kick Anthony. Fuck that guy. Because she's also looking a little bit more like the Hulk than I planned. And that's not fair to Penis and Priscilla, who are basically just the exact same body type and appearance as the evil stepsisters in Cinderella in the Disney cartoon one, if I'm remembering that right. Which is, of course, obviously us as adults viewing a show that's mostly about sex. We need the the moral signaling of Disney children's cartoons to know that, Penelope is the good sister and her other two sisters are mean and they're bad. Okay, now she's fucked up. She looks like Slender Man. Fuck. No. No. Oh, well. Alright, so now there's Venus Featherington and Slender Man Featherington. Anyway, yeah, so when the Duke busts, Daphne's like, does it hurt? And he's like, no. And that's but a prelude to the misunderstandings we will discover Daphne has about the coital act in this episode. Supposed to be Lord Featherington in this picture too, because they're all lined up waiting for the Bridgertons to dine with them. We're going to get to that part in a little bit, because every other scene in this episode is pretty much about Daphne and the Duke of Hotness having sex, and I can't draw that for several obvious reasons. So instead, this is about the Featheringtons and Marina waiting for the Bridgertons to arrive for dinner, but I fucked up the spacing. And so then it's just a long montage of Daphne and the Duke getting sexual. And they just get sexual. He gives her a little slurp, which is good of him. They sex and they sex and they sex, and the servants overhear them and they think it's hilarious. And they sex so much that Daphne gets a fuck mat in the back of her hair that her maid has to pick out. So that's... there you go. There it is. Yep. That's what happens. And back in London, Lady Bridgerton is kind of low-key mad at Colin for, getting engaged without her permission. And that's pretty much fair, but she and Colin end up ultimately laughing it off because as he points out, well, at least I'm not as difficult as Eloise, and now you're going to have to get Eloise married, and you're going to be sad about it, and like, okay, I guess that's fair. Back at the Featheringtons, Penelope is mad at Marina for marrying the guy that she is in love with / has a crush on, depending on how seriously you take her feelings, which will be a point of debate later in this episode. And Marina is trying to be nice with her and telling her about how much she has appreciated Penelope's support and stuff, but Penelope is not really very receptive. Then Lady Featherington comes in to take Marina to get her wedding stuff done and new dresses. And when she's gone, Penis and Priscilla joke a bunch about her secret pregnancy and how she's getting one over on Colin Bridgerton, which upsets Penelope all the more. At the dressmakers, Marina and Lady Featherington run into Lady Bridgerton and Eloise because Eloise is being forced to move up to adult women's clothes because now pretty soon she's going to be eligible for marriage. When the Featheringtons try to get these new clothes for Marina, though, they are reminded by the dressmaker that they are way over leveraged financially. She doesn't want to make them any more new clothes until she can get paid, understandably. But Marina, using her knowledge of French, because apparently her mom was French, catches the dressmaker out in the secret that the dressmaker isn't French at all. She just uses this to make herself seem classier and charge the women who come here more. And so Marina basically blackmails the dressmaker into doing her wedding stuff on credit, even though the Featheringtons do not have the money to ever get her back, which was stone cold of Marina, but you know, it's a girl boss's world. We're all just girl bosses in it, so if slay she must, slay she will. Back at the fair, and Daphne and the Duke of Hotness are presiding over it since it's their neighborhood. They have to choose the winner for the best pig competition. And when Daphne asks what is the prize for the best pig, they answer the obvious answer, which is that it's going to be the pig that we all eat. Daphne apparently did not know where fucking meat comes from. And so she's so upset by this that she's like, oh, all the pigs are tied, haha. I mean, come on. Like, yeah, I have known people who didn't know where meat came from now. In our modern times, when very few people are directly engaged with the art of farming, but that's like a time where they still frequently brought the creature to the table with its trotters on, you know? People knew about farms. They were aware. They were aware, much like most of them, I think, were aware of how sex would happen. Daphne. And while they're there, they are learning that, you know, the peasants are suffering. The steward didn't manage the estate well. Things are in disarray. People are going hungry. It's a bad scene. It's a bad scene here on the estate of the Duke of Hotness, and they need him to fix it. And Daphne, who is kind and sympathetic, especially to children, bonds with one of the little children and her mother over their struggles, and so is able to, you know, make people like her, currently, for the moment, make people like her a bit more and feel a bit more sympathetic to her and the Duke of Hotness. And the Duke of Hotness, also seeing her with the child, laments a little bit that she can't have children now that they're married, but they talk about it, and she's like, no, I'm happy with our life together as it is. You know, I have you, and that's all I need, and we'll have lots of nieces and nephews because I have so many siblings. Which is like, okay, cool. Hopefully that works out for them. No, it doesn't. We all know. We all know where this is going, even though I was kind of hoping it was not going there, because It's just not a good idea. It's not a good idea. It's a very challenging story idea that is poorly executed. The Featheringtons then prepare for the scene which I'm showing you here, where they are going to have a fancy dinner with the Bridgertons, and Mrs. Featherington is excited for it because this is a chance for them to really raise their station. And it's all about Marina. And Marina has, I shit you not, this kind of like Bride of Frankenstein hair, which I thought was pretty lit in this scene. So I'm trying to do justice to it here. They have the dinner. Lady Featherington keeps bringing up that, oh, they should get married right away if possible, and it should be a speedy engagement, but Anthony is resistant, as you would expect. For once, I can't disagree with him there. You'll never guess it, but Penis and Slender Man are bad at the things that girls are supposed to be good at. They aren't good at singing or playing the piano forte. Isn't that funny? Isn't it funny how some people aren't good at the things that we think are attractive? And that's how you know they're not a good person, because they don't have attractive qualities. And they're ugly, and they're tall, and they're skinny, and they've got horse faces, and that's who they are. We know good people are attractive and bad people are ugly. That's a foundational truth about reality, and it's good that constantly we're surrounded by media images that affirm and reaffirm this idea to us, so that we can all stand in comfortable agreement of what is true in life, which is that good people are always beautiful and bad people are always ugly. I'm sorry, I'm not cut out for the romance genre. I'm not cut out for the romance genre. I'm fighting for my life out here. And Bridgerton is winning. I've joined the war on Bridgerton on the side of not Bridgerton, but Bridgerton is winning. So Colin understandably leaves the room to get away from Penis and Slender Man's bad musical performance, and Penelope tries to catch him in the hall, and she's like, Colin, there's something you don't know about Marina. But she chickens out of saying she's already pregnant. She just says she's in love with somebody else. And Colin's like, that's okay. You know, everybody has relationships before the person that they end up settling down with. I'm not mad about it, which I thought was very big of him as a Regency gentleman. So, cool, props. And then as Colin's brushing it off, Marina comes in, and she's like, hey, what's going on? And so Penelope leaves, and then Marina is talking to Colin, and she's like, oh, Colin, it's too terrible for us to not be able to get married right away. I don't think I can bear to wait that long. Are you sure we can't get married sooner? And he was like, we could elope to Scotland, you know. It's quite easy, and indeed it is famously easy to elope to Scotland for reasons that I don't remember why, but it came up in the Forsyte Saga recently. Forsyte Saga BTW, way better than Bridgerton, obviously. Meanwhile, back at the Duke of Hotness's estate, Daphne goes to look in on the nursery, and she closes it off like, oh well, that'll never happen for me, which is big of her, but it's not going to last. Then she finds the Duke of Hotness in his study. He's working hard because of what's going on with the estate. She wants his attention, but he's kind of not in a good place to attend to her. And so she decides to go deliver gift baskets to the tenants, since they are struggling right now. Now Daphne is working with her maid to prepare the gift basket. She's getting beautiful lavender out of the garden, and the housekeeper finds her there and is quite disturbed by the fact that she's working even though she's the lady of the house. And that's a little frustrating for Daphne because she likes to keep busy. And at this point, I was still holding out hope that maybe I had misunderstood some of the controversy in the show, and that maybe they were going in an angle where Daphne thought she was going to be okay because, she had all the Duke's attention, but she realizes that he can't give her as much attention now that he's back to working on the estate, and that finding part of that balance for her as a woman of how she's going to live her life in this society that doesn't take her seriously as a worker, but also wants her to do so much emotional and reproductive labor, like finding her purpose in life maybe that was going to be what Daphne's story was about now that she was married. Unfortunately, hope springs eternal, but Bridgerton springs like a predator. Daphne laments to her maid that the housekeeper hates her, and the maid is like, and she seems, like a no fun lady, so I'm not surprised. Then when Daphne takes the gift baskets to the village, none of the villagers want to talk to her to take her gift baskets, and she's worried about what did she do. She runs into the mom and child she befriended at the fair, and the mom explains when a pig is selected at the fair, usually that means they get to supply all the pork to your estate for all your fancy balls and stuff for the rest of the year, so it's a lot of money. And so when you didn't declare a definitive winner, nobody got that money. And so now they're feeling a bit resentful that you screwed them. And Daphne feels really bad about that, and I thought this was a fine scene. Even though I'm mad at her for not knowing where meat comes from, I still felt like, this was a great scene of Daphne realizing she made a mistake, trying to figure out how to correct it. Certainly makes her a much more sympathetic and appealing character to realize, she's had a lot of training in how to manage a house, but she hasn't had a lot of training about how to be a member of the really fancy nobility, which she is now, and she has new responsibilities. So, yeah, there's a lot of frustrations and struggles in that she now faces. So that's all fine there. And the child and the mom still like her, and they happily take one of her baskets. And so she decides that she's going to try and do a better job from now on. And that's, again, all fine. But when she gets home, the Duke of Hotness is moving his office to another part of the house because he needs to really knuckle under and solve these problems. And so he is still not giving Daphne a lot of attention, which she's feeling frustrated about. So she decides to spend some time trying to reconcile with her housekeeper. So she talks seriously with the housekeeper about, I've experienced running a household, but I don't have experience being a duchess. What do you think I could do better? Stuff like that. In the course of this conversation, the housekeeper reveals the Duke's difficult childhood, how he grew up here alone, how his dad was evil and didn't care when his mom died, how hard it was for her to conceive a child at all, and how much they all loved his mother and what a wonderful duchess she was, and how they were all so sad when she died. And in the course of this conversation, also in a very tortured fashion that was not very credible or convincing to how a conversation would go, the housekeeper reveals that jizz is what makes babies. Funnily enough, along with not knowing about the sex act, I guess it makes sense that Daphne would also not know that semen produces children. Daphne didn't know that because she's so damn dumb. And now she's wondering, wait a second, the Duke of Hotness said he was infertile, but he still busts. Still he busts. So, what's the dilly-dally? Indeed, what is the dilly-dally, Daphne? What do you think the dilly-dally is, team? I jest. We know what the dilly-dally is. It's only Daphne who doesn't know what the goddamn dilly-dally is. I have no idea what color Lady Featherington's eyes are, BTW. This is just me giving it whatever I feel. Doing what I feel. Oh god, she looks like scary Nancy Reagan. I guess that's kind of redundant. She looks like Nancy Reagan. Back at the Featheringtons, Penelope is feigning illness in order to avoid having to go to dinners and see people. And then, as it turns out, she has a grander plan. And it was a grander plan that I didn't really understand it very well. Because as soon as her mother and the rest of the family leave, she goes and she searches for somebody's letters, and I don't know if they were Marina's letters or for her mom's letters, but in the course of the search, somehow she finds the papers that her mom and her mom's servant used when they were falsifying the signature of Marina's erstwhile boyfriend who fathered her nascent child. She shows these to Marina and says, look, my mom faked your ex breaking up with you. Maybe he's still in love with you. And Marina wisely points out it doesn't matter. He still didn't respond to any of her letters, so she can't rely on him. She needs to get married before this baby comes. Colin will marry her. He's a nice guy. They've got a plan. And that's when Penelope realizes that they're going to elope. And at that point, finally, Marina figures out that Penelope is in love with Colin. And she says, Colin is never going to love you because you're not a woman. Which I assume is a reference to how Penelope is still, underage and considered a young girl in their society. It wasn't necessarily a nice thing to say, but Marina's not wrong. Penelope's still a kid, and also Marina's kind of got bigger problems that she really needs solved. Obviously, Penelope is exceedingly upset, and she runs off. Meanwhile, Daphne finds the Duke of Hotness up late. She has sex with him on his desk, furiously. And then when he busts into his hanky, she notes it, and then she goes to find her maid, and she forces her maid to tell her the truth about what sex is and how it works. Oh, Slenderman has too many fingers. Slenderman, I've given you too many fingers. I guess that's appropriate. We don't even get to hear the truth about sex explained to Daphne. We just see the maid, speaking with a loud musical track playing over it, which is, kind of funnier because we can see the act about 1 million times just in this episode, but even then we can't hear the actual deets, because in some ways we're just like Daphne. Daphne is reeling from the knowledge that semen is where babies come from, and it's hard to say without laughing because it's laughable. Matching eyes and lipstick, that's a look I think people should be doing more. I'm digressing, but it's because I don't want to have to keep talking about Bridgerton because we're getting closer and closer to the very unpleasant part. The next morning, the Duke of Hotness wakes up and Daphne isn't there. It's because she is helping the peasants some more. But while they're saying idiotic, rustic things like, "Oh, Miss Daphne, thank you for helping us," I don't know how that voice was somehow both American hick and British country person at the same time, but it was. But even as she's cheering up the peasants, Daphne is also sorrowful, lamentatious. Maybe you can hear the people mowing the lawn outside. That's not relevant to Bridgerton, though. She's sorrowful, she's lamentatious, but bravely she continues on. And by bravely she continues on, I mean she formulates a devious scheme. And by devious scheme, I mean troubling action which a person should probably not do. What color will Penis's eyes be? I think they could be a beautiful crocodile green. New Featherington family tradition where you have the same lipstick as your eye color. Okay. Alright, well there's no noodling around about it now. That night, the Duke of Hotness and Daphne find each other. They have sexo, and as they're nearing the climactic moment of the sexo, Daphne convinces the Duke to roll over so she can be on top. And then as he is nearing his final emission, she does not get up when he asks her to please let him up, and so he ejects his material into her body, which is not what he generally wishes to do sexually, as we know from previous episodes, but Daphne takes this action to force him to do so, despite the fact that it isn't a thing that he likes to do for reasons that are personal to him, that she also could have asked him about at any time once she had figured out that semen makes babies, the big secret that they're keeping from us. But she doesn't. She didn't. Instead, she just did this to him, a thing that it wasn't cool to do to your intimate partner. This hair looks really cool for Penelope, though. I think they should do her hair like this on the show. I think it rips. And that's kind of all there is to say about it, really. Like, she does that. The Duke is upset. He is angry, and she's also angry, and she says that he's been keeping secrets from her. And he says, I thought you would know how sex worked. Which, yes, I thought you would know how sex worked. Also, like, just, you could have talked about it. You could have said, why? You said, I don't want to have children. I can't give you children. What a dumbass. Why didn't you tell her about the things that happened to you in your life? Why didn't you say something? Why didn't she ask you? Why does she have no curiosity about who you are and why you've made certain decisions, or about, you know, this apparent, what she thought was a serious medical issue? Jesus Christ. This is not, I know that, like, cheesy miscommunications are often part of romance stories, but this isn't cheesy. This is just stupid. It's just stupid. It's just dumb, and it's stupid, and it's not making the show more interesting. It's not making the characters more likable or compelling. It's not making me wonder what's going to happen to them. It's making me wish they would be crushed in a rock slide. Fuck. Sorry, Penelope. You're okay, though. I still think you're alright. I don't remember if Penelope's eyes are green. No, those are scary. She looks like the girl from Brave. Let's do blue for her. Let's do blue. In fact, no, let's do something more sedate and comforting. Let's do a nice brown. A nice brown. That's nice. That's very relaxed. And then do a little bit of cleanup. Yeah, so then after Daphne takes advantage of the Duke of Hotness and outrages his person, she then proceeds to yell at him about how he took advantage of her by not explaining to her what jizzing is, because he had foolishly presumed she, an adult woman, would know, which I would also then like to know. So what's the standard here in the Bridgerton universe? Like, is it then normal or not normal for an adult woman not to know what sex is? Because it kind of seems like it's not normal. So, yeah, Daphne and the Duke have a big fight. They're angry at each other. They're mad. Their marriage, which had been good for 50 seconds, is now bad again. But she's probably also pregnant. Whatever. Then back in London, Eloise is sitting in the backyard, depressed because she has to become a woman. Maybe, hopefully, Eloise isn't stupid. Maybe she'll find out about sex before she has to get married, for the love of God. I don't even know what I'm saying. Right, Eloise is sitting depressed in the yard, and at last Penelope shows up. She's weeping. We're like, why is she weeping? And then we find out it's because she's done something very bad, which is that she leaked to Lady Whistledown that Marina is pregnant, because the next day the broadsheet comes out. It announces that Marina is pregnant before wedlock, and Colin and Marina, who are about to leave their respective houses to go to Scotland to get married, are both shocked, and in Colin's case, heartbroken, and in Marina's case, so scared, because her life is ruined. Her life is ruined, but I'm not mad at Penelope because this is at least an interesting decision being made by a character. It definitely wasn't a nice thing to do. It wasn't a good thing for Penelope to do, like, from a moral perspective, but it makes Penelope more interesting. We're like, oh, Penelope's supposed to be the sweet, harmless friend, but then she did something that was kind of selfish. That's interesting. That's an interesting thing for a character to do. So I'm not mad. I'm not even disappointed. I just wish that they weren't probably also going to solve the Marina problem with, magic. Because whatever, her boyfriend's gonna come back or something at the last minute, or she's gonna die in childbirth, and then they're gonna be able to someone's gonna happily adopt the sickly, miserable bastard of a child, or something equally stupid. Well, there you go. It was the infamous episode of Bridgerton. It just is. It's frustrating because it doesn't even really feel like a necessary character beat to, like, yeah, I guess in romance you're supposed to go back and forth whether or not it's going to work out, but it's not a satisfying or exciting character beat at all. It's just like, there's many ways they could have gotten Daphne pregnant if they want. Famously, pulling out is not 100% birth control. It's not a very effective method. Like, she could have just gotten pregnant, or the Duke could have lost his cool a little early. Like, if that was what we needed for the story to go forward, which I think is a fine direction to have the story go forward, because then we can talk about, oh, this is Daphne's dream at last. And then she could still be like, hey, I thought you were impotent. And he's like, no, I just didn't want to have children. They could still argue about it. Like, she didn't have to force him, take away his choice. Like, they could have just made an honest mistake. And I really didn't enjoy the way the scene was filmed, because it was really filmed in a way where it's kind of supposed to be both titillating and like a little bit girl power. Like, oh, she's on top, she's got him now, she's taking back her sexual agency. But you can't take back your sexual agency by taking somebody else's agency. I would even, like, you can write whatever you want, right, in a story. All I retain is my right to complain about it. I should probably put some shapes in Marina's hair before we go. I don't even remember what I was saying now. I guess what I would like is if they were going to have Daphne do something that was very questionable like this, that she did in this scene, in this episode, I would kind of then rather we were thinking about Daphne, wow, okay, she's got some issues that we haven't, like, really dealt with. Like, wow, Daphne, that was a big ethical screw up on your part. But I feel like what's going to happen is that somehow the Duke of Hotness is going to have to apologize for this, even though he didn't really do anything wrong except make some communication fails. And we're going to still be thinking of Daphne as, like, the pure princess of goodness and gentleness who just loves children and is ultimately going to get rewarded with the one thing that she wants, which is a child. Yeah, that added a lot. That was the right decision. She's going to get rewarded with the one thing that she really wants, and the Duke of Hotness is going to have to repent of not wanting to have children, and so that makes me feel not good. I feel ungood. I feel bad inside about this episode. It made me feel bad inside. But I think this picture's pretty funny. I think it's a bit iconic. I think it's very girly pop runway in the weird psychic snakeskin reality that is the Featherington estate. This has been your Ween signing off. Godspeed.